Greetings, fellow poker players. Welcome to this strategic video focused on the dynamics between the big blind and the low jack positions in No Limit Hold'em. Throughout this session, we'll delve into methods to enhance your pre-flop gameplay and equip you with informed decision-making skills from both of these positions. In this video, we will delve into the dynamics between the big blind and the low jack positions in No Limit Hold'em. This is part 1 of the big blind versus the low jack, where we will focus on the heads-up pre-flop play from these positions. The next video will delve into the post-flop play. Once we have explored the pre-flop strategy, we will discuss some important caveats to consider when employing these ranges, along with a quick note on exploitative versus GTO, game theory optimal, strategies. Finally, we will recap the valuable information covered in this video, summarizing the key takeaways. So, stay tuned and make an effort to absorb as much of this valuable knowledge as possible. Playing from the big blind presents one of the most common and challenging scenarios in poker. The big blind player already has a blind posted, granting them better pot odds, which means they should defend relatively wide, as we'll see from the ranges shortly. However, the primary challenge of playing from the big blind is being out of position in most cases. Similarly, playing from the low jack can often leave you out of position as well, leading to the necessity of adopting a tighter range to remain profitable. Consequently, the big blind must exercise caution to avoid getting too out of line, as the strong low jack range will dominate a significant portion of the big blind's continuing range. Achieving a balanced strategy is crucial in poker, but finding that balance in the big blind can be tricky due to the wide range of hands you can call with. Throughout this video, we will delve into this balancing act. One common imbalance players have is only calling with weak hands and raising with premiums. This strategy makes it easy for players to predict the kind of hand a player may have, depending on the actions taken. Players can then adjust their strategy accordingly to exploit this. To maintain balance, we must raise a mix of stronger and weaker hands. Okay, so on to the first range in this video. Just to note, the active range combos are the combinations of hands currently in range. 1326 is saying that all available starting hands are currently in range. The range grid provided here shows the range for a low jack raise first in. As we can see, this range is quite tight and consists of all the premium hands and some other drawing type hands for balance. We are looking to raise approximately 19.8% of the time. We do not want to call any hands and should never limp, so the call percentage is 0. This means that we are folding the remainder of the time. This totals around 80.2% fold frequency. As we are raising 19.8% of the time, this equates to around 262 combos. This is what we call our continuing range, and if we keep that in mind for the future ranges, we can see how the ranges start to condense against any raises. Now we can imagine that the low jack has raised and all other players at the table have folded. We are now sitting in the big blind, facing a raise from the low jack. This is the range that we want to employ versus a GTO open to remain balanced. Again, all available hands are in range, which is 1326 combos. We want to 3-bet around 5.7% of the time. This equates to approximately 76 combos. This range includes the premiums, which are then balanced with a lot of low-frequency 3-bets. Mainly from low-suited connectors, middling Queen-X suited hands, and some low King-X suited hands. The majority of the big blind's defense strategy consists of calling hands. This is a common theme when playing from the big blind, as many hands cannot handle a 4-bet from the low jack. Let's take ace-jack suited, for example. If we 3-bet with ace-jack suited too frequently against a low jack open and then face a 4-bet, we would often have to fold, since the hand is dominated by the low jack's 4-betting range of better aces, kings, and queens. Therefore, these easily dominated hands are better suited for calling, allowing us to realize their equity, as opposed to building a large pot where we can easily be dominated. On the other hand, hands like 7-6 suited are good candidates for a 3-bet, because if they are 4-bet, we are less likely to be dominated. While we may not be in great shape, these hands are more playable and will perform better on the flop. Finally, low ace, king, and queen-x hands are raised purely for balance and blockers. For example, if we hold an ace, it reduces the number of combinations of hands that the low jack will want to 4-bet, such as ace, king, and aces. This increases the likelihood of the villain wanting to fold. As we can see, the raise and call range versus the fold range is not quite an even 50-50 split, which may seem counterintuitive for a balanced range. However, if we consider the hands being raised by the low jack, we don't want to raise too many hands against their strong range. Likewise, we also don't want to call too many hands, as many of the big blind's defenses are weak against a low jack's raise first in RFI. The numbers may sound off going forward as we are not raising 12.5% of hands in total, we are raising 12.5% of the active hands. This is because the Lowjack open raises 19.8% of hands, meaning there are only 262 active combos or hands available to us to 4-bet, call, or fold. Think of it this way. We can't 4-bet 9-6 off as it was folded pre, whereas we can 4-bet aces as they were raised pre. This is known as being in or out of range and relates to what we said earlier about a player's continuing range. So, the big blind has 3-bet against the Lowjack. How should the Lowjack respond? Well, the Lowjack will look to 4-bet against a big blind with around 12.5% of the combos in range. This is weighted towards the premiums. It's because the big blind is betting a tight range, so when we decide to 4-bet, we need to be even tighter to compete. Again, this needs to be balanced, so we do this by 4-betting the ace-x suited hands at a low frequency, along with the high king-x hands. We do this for the same reasons as before. Good blockers, fold equity, and balance. We are looking to call the big blinds 3-bet 18.8% of the time. This comes from the hands that have playability, such as the low-suited connectors and low pocket pairs at a low frequency. We also call hands that will not do well against being 5-bet jammed on. This includes queens and some of the higher suited aces. Let's take king-queen suited, for example. If we 4-bet king-queen suited and the big blind 5-bets all in, we will have to fold, as the all-in range for the big blind is primarily aces, kings, and ace-king, all of which king-queen is really far behind. So, the best strategy in that example is to call and play post-flop with a strong hand that can flop well without condensing the big blind's range further. As for folding, we are looking to fold 68.7% of the time versus the big blind's 3-bet. This is where a lot of beginners make mistakes and do not fold enough. Even with position, the big blind's 3-betting range is too tight to call hands like ace-queen off and queen-jack. Players need to remember that folding is not being weak, it is being balanced. If we call all our hands when we are 3-bet, then our opponents will know to 3-bet with the premiums and then go for value post-flop. It also incentivizes our opponents to 3-bet wider, expecting folds and weakening their range, meaning we can then play back at them post-flop or with 4-bets. Now we can look at how the big blind wants to react to the Lowjack's 4-bet. In this range, there are only 76 combos of hands in play, as the ranges have condensed significantly due to hands being called and folded against previous raises. Against a 4-bet from the Lowjack, we are looking to 5-bet all in with 36.4% of our remaining range. This includes aces, kings, and ace-king hands, as well as ace-5 suited. The ace-x suited hands are raised 50% of the time. Ace-queen suited and queens are raised around 15%. We can see that we balance our premium aces and kings primarily with low-suited aces. When we face the 4-bet, we are looking to call around 21.1% of our range. The majority of our suited connectors are called. Jacks are called all the time, and queen-jack and queen-10 are called around 15% to 20% of the time. The remaining combos are folded, totaling around 42.6% of our range. All the ace-x offsuit hands are folded, as these are easily dominated against a 4-betting range from the Lowjack. The junky king and queen suited hands are also folded for the same reason. Finally, let's look at how the Lowjack should respond against a big blind's 5-bet all-in. This is a simple range. We should call off with the strongest hands and fold the weakest. Note that in this range, we call off with jacks and 10s. However, in the previous ranges shown, these combos should mainly call the 3-bet from the big blind, so there are not many jacks or 10s left in our range at this point. As we can see, we cannot raise, so the raise percentage is 0%. We call with around half of our range, which equates to 17 combos. We fold the rest of our range, which is approximately 16 combos. If we are to play a perfect GTO strategy, this range has become nicely balanced, as you can see from the percentages. Now that we have discussed each specific pre-flop range, let's review all the ranges and the actions taken. One noticeable trend is that as the ranges face more raises, they tend to converge closer and closer to a 50-50 split between raising or calling versus folding. This behavior indicates a GTO strategy, which aims to make your overall gamma play unexploitable. By adopting these ranges, opponents become indifferent to calling or folding, providing an edge in marginal situations. Developing this level of play is essential as games become more challenging and opponents make fewer mistakes. Additionally, it is evident that the number of hand combinations in the range decreases significantly after each raise. This decrease is a result of the ranges becoming tighter and stronger, with weaker hands either being folded or called. For instance, when the big blind faces the Lowjack's open raise, the big blind is only raising 5.7% of hands. On the other hand, the Lowjack's raise first in range contains only 262 combos, limiting their ability to re-raise a substantial portion of that range without risking playing with a weak overall range. This pattern continues as more raises and actions are taken in the hand, leading to a more narrowed range for each player. It's important to recognize that the ranges presented in the video are GTO ranges and might not always be the most profitable strategy, especially against weaker players. The provided ranges are designed for 6 max online poker games with a typical rake structure and 100 BP stacks. The ranges also do not consider any additional money in the pot pre-flop. To maximize profitability, we should consider employing some simple exploits. For instance, if we notice that players at our table are calling too wide, we should be cautious about raising with balancing hands like ace-5 suited, as they might not fare well against opponents who are not folding middling ace-x hands. Instead, we should focus on betting stronger hands and going for value when we have a clear advantage over our opponents. Conversely, if we find ourselves at a table where players are folding too frequently, we can take advantage of this by raising with a wider range. This is especially effective when playing in position, as we can also utilize our positional advantage during post-flop play as well. Additionally, our post-flop skill edge should be taken into consideration. If we have a skill edge over our opponents, we don't necessarily need to raise as much pre-flop. Instead, we can play post-flop and capitalize on realizing our equity. However, if we lack a skill edge, making more pre-flop raises might be beneficial to increase the chances of taking down the pot before the flop. This will also reduce the stack-to-pot ratio, thereby simplifying our decisions. By incorporating these simple exploits, as well as using a good GTO foundation, we can aim to be as profitable as possible in various poker scenarios. Let's have a quick recap of what we have covered in this video. We started by discussing a comprehensive summary of how the low jack and big blind positions interact pre-flop. We then examined the specific ranges, taking into consideration the pre-flop action and observing how each position responds to the other's aggression. Finally, we delved into some caveats of the information provided within the video, as well as discussing some basic exploits that can be employed against certain player types to enhance profitability in real poker games. Thank you for watching, and please keep an eye out for part 2 where I will explore some basic post-flop play. If you enjoyed the video, I kindly request you to consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Your support will help build the community and get these videos out to other poker fans. Thanks again, and see you next time. Good luck at the tables, and don't forget to practice poker.